Kyle Shanahan was born in 1979. This same year, the 49ers hired Bill Walsh as their new head coach. Both Bill and Kyle started their tenure as head coach with 2 losing seasons, rebuilding the roster, but more importantly, the culture.
I can't wait to have the opportunity, and we owe it to the fans and everyone out here that together we bring it back to what it was, and I'm very confident we're going to do that. We're going to hold people accountable. We're going to do it the right way. Everybody who's in this, from the top to the bottom, be going in one direction, and that's what does it take to win now, and what does it take to consistently win over the long haul.
Bill Walsh's 3rd season as the 49ers head coach, 13-3, and a Super Bowl victory. Kyle Shanahan's 3rd season as 49ers head coach, 13-3, and a Super Bowl appearance. This is the story of the chosen one, the rise of Shanahan, and how Kyle Shanahan built the 2019-2020 49ers. Before I tell you why Kyle Shanahan is the chosen one, make sure you Gronk spike the like button, or for you Niners fans, Kettle spike the like button, and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL vids just like this. It wasn't easy for Kyle Shanahan to get to this point. He may be the son of an all-time great head coach, but you don't get anywhere in the NFL strictly by name alone. After all, he is the first son of a Super Bowl winning head coach to actually make it to the big game, and that's because he's earned it. Let's rewind back to the beginning. After serving as a quality control coach in Tampa Bay under John Gruden, Kyle was hired in 2006 by his father's former offensive coordinator, Gary Kubiak, to coach the receivers for the Houston Texans, at the time becoming the youngest position coach in the NFL. It didn't take long for Kyle to make his way up the ranks, becoming the quarterback coach in 2007 and ultimately the OC for Houston in 2008, becoming the youngest coordinator in the NFL, more than 3 years younger than Josh McDaniels. During his time as the Texans offensive coordinator, we saw the first glimpse of greatness from young Kyle, along with the rise of the expansion Texans. In his first season as an offensive coordinator, Kyle coached up the Texans to 3rd in total yards and 4th in passing yards, producing a career season for running back Steve Slayton, who finished 6th in the NFL in rushing. A career season for wide receiver Andre Johnson, who was selected to the All-Pro team, leading the NFL in receptions and receiving yards. And a career season for tight end Owen Daniels, who was selected to the Pro Bowl. In 2009, the Texans finished top 10 in points and top 5 in yards, 1st in passing yards, with Matt Schaub's best season of his career, being selected to the Pro Bowl, throwing for over 4,700 yards and 29 touchdowns. Andre Johnson, meanwhile, again led the NFL in receiving yards, caught a career number of touchdowns, and was selected to his 2nd All-Pro team. In Andre Johnson's 12-year career, he was selected to an All-Pro team twice. Both years were with Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator. He gave Matt Schaub his best statistical season and Owen Daniels his most catches in one season in his entire career. In 2010, Kyle left the Texans to join his father, Mike Shanahan, with the Washington Redskins. And despite having 34-year-old rundown Donovan McNabb at quarterback, Kyle Shanahan still schemed up a way for Santana Moss to grab a career-high 93 receptions. In 2011, the Skins featured Rex Grossman, of all quarterbacks, and John Beck, I bet you haven't heard of him, Roy Halou at running back, and their leading receiver was Jabbar Gaffney. They managed to still put up the 16th most yards in football that season. With rookie phenom Robert Griffin III, Kyle built a revolutionary offense around his skills and specifically his legs. The Skins ran for the most yards in the NFL that season with undrafted rookie free agent Alfred Morris collecting over 1,600 yards. They finished top 5 in points and yards, and despite a defense allowing the 4th most yards in football, won the NFC East. On February 1st, 2014, Kyle was hired as offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. The team was 7-6 that season with Brian Hoyer as their starting quarterback, and Andrew Hawkins produced a career season with 63 catches and over 800 yards. On January 8th, 2015, Kyle resigned from his offensive coordinator position after disagreeing with the Browns front office and their mandate to start Johnny Manziel, basically calling the Browns front office out and saying, "You drafted a bust." Sorry, Johnny. It didn't take long for Kyle to find another OC job with the Atlanta Falcons, the one that would allow him to be recognized as a legit head coaching candidate. In 2015, the Atlanta Falcons finished 7th in total yards. Julio Jones produced his best season ever, leading the NFL in yards and receptions with 136 grabs for over 1,800 yards. Second-year running back Devontae Freeman came out of absolutely nowhere to finish 7th in the NFL in rushing and led the league in touchdowns while finishing 3rd in running back receptions with 73. In 2016, the Atlanta Falcons offense under Kyle Shanahan was the highest scoring offense in the NFL and the 8th highest scoring offense in NFL history, finishing top 5 in both passing and rushing. This was Matt Ryan's MVP season, earning an 11-5 record, a division title, and a Super Bowl 51 berth versus the New England Patriots. Shanahan himself was named the NFL Assistant Coach of the Year for that season. And despite all of these accolades, it has taken this long, until 2019, for Kyle Shanahan to be recognized the way he should. The word genius is thrown around far too often in sports, but Kyle Shanahan truly is a football genius.
Shanahan told me, he's like, if you just run, if you look out, you'll get dropped by the safety and you'll score a touchdown. And I said, okay.
He made that prediction?
Oh, 100%.
From day one, what the Niners and owner John York did was step out of the way and allow the genius to work. And this team needed a lot of work. This franchise was in deep trouble. Yes, there was the Harbaugh era, where the Niners reached the NFC Championship 3 seasons in a row with 1 Super Bowl appearance. But the 3 seasons that followed were an absolute collapse. 3 seasons with 3 different coaches, Harbaugh, Tom Sula, and Chip Kelly. 3 consecutive seasons without a winning record. And of course, the whole Kaepernick debacle.
Is it important for players to like a coach?
Again, this has gone on way too far, in my opinion. We're talking about unnamed sources.
It was going to take some time for San Francisco to get back on its feet, to reconstruct the roster and resurrect the culture.
It's my pleasure to introduce 2 great gentlemen that are going to help bring us back to where we belong.
The 2019 Niners are a result of a well-executed vision, a vision of culture, and a vision of personnel.
Kyle and I, we trusted each other. We came up with a vision of what we were looking for, and we worked as a team. And when you work as a team, great things can happen.
Executing this vision would mean recruiting the perfect pieces for the puzzle. And from day one, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, their goal was to build a fast, mentally and physically tough football team who can beat you in a variety of ways.
But we're going to assemble a team that will make you proud. I can promise you this, we're going to have players that will compete every day. They're going to be great teammates. We're going to have a team that plays fast, plays physical. We believe in those things. And we're going to have guys with great character.
Offensively, the Niners needed to be able to create mismatches and have versatility. And defensively, they needed to be so fast and so ferocious that scheme, throw it out the window. it really didn't matter. And with Kyle's offensive expertise, they almost always knew they had a coaching advantage on at least one side of the football. San Francisco's top 4 highest paid players are the most crucial positions on a modern football team. The quarterback, the guy who protects the quarterback, the guy who sacks the quarterback, and the guy who covers the quarterback's top weapon. Kyle needed a leader, he needed a gamer, and most importantly, a player who understood culture. So who better than Tom Brady's understudy, Jimmy Garoppolo? What Kyle, John, and the Niners organization did with Jimmy was extremely unique. The Niners front-loaded Jimmy G's contract so that it would pay him $37 million in 2018, making him the highest paid quarterback for that season. Understandably, some looked at this and shook their heads. They said, an unproven quarterback getting this much money? Are you insane?
If you have a guy who's got the ability to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league, you should feel very blessed to have that.
Right.
And that's what we do have.
You have to understand that the 49ers didn't necessarily gamble on Jimmy G. They made a calculated gamble on what Garoppolo would look like inside Shanahan's offense.
He played as good as I could ever have imagined.
Right.
And then you're on the open market. What do you do?
Right.
And that's not a guy that you can lose. I mean, it was real what he did.
Yep.
They front-loaded Garoppolo's contract. That would allow the Niners to be in a perfect place in their 3rd season and beyond to build a roster that could compete for a championship when the culture and the foundation was truly ready.
Feels great, baby.
In 2019, Jimmy G went from being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL to the 15th highest paid. So if they didn't spend all of their money on the quarterback position, what exactly did the Niners invest their money into?
It's not as simple as, hey, you got this guy. It's, all right, you got that guy, be excited about it. But that also means you don't get this guy, and that guy.
Yeah,
so
sure.
what does that mean to your team?
Right.
To ensure that Jimmy G be as successful as he possibly could be, they needed to make sure their new quarterback and face of their franchise would be protected. After a 2-14 season in 2016, left tackle and team legend Joe Staley contemplated retirement. Thankfully for the 49ers, he was willing to give this new regime a shot, and he did stick around. This was a huge move because Staley was the first piece in transforming the offensive line in Kyle's image, who could run his zone scheme to perfection. Arguably the biggest key to the Shanahan system is a smart, athletic center, which is why they went out and they signed Weston Richburg to top 10 money in their first offseason in charge. But Lynch and Shanny, they weren't done there. Every offensive line needs a couple diamonds in the rough. In that same offseason, San Fran traded a 5th rounder for former Lions first round pick Tomlinson. And in 2018, completed their starting offensive line by locking down a pair of Mikes, their other tackle in the first round, Notre Dame stud Mike McGlinchey, and signing Mike Person, who was with Kyle in Atlanta from 2015 to 2016, a former 7th round journeyman who played on 7 teams, now became a starter in San Francisco. But as many of you know, a starting line isn't always enough. Kyle grew from experience, understanding that during his days in Cleveland, without Alex Mack, the run game completely fell apart. Noting that depth was crucial at center, this offseason, Kyle signed another familiar face from his time in Atlanta, Ben Garland, who has been absolutely one of the team's unsung heroes. The offensive line is the foundation of every offense. But to get the best out of your running game, specifically Kyle Shanahan's running game, you need something a bit different. And that's why one of the first moves made by the Niners was signing fullback Kyle Juszczyk to a 4-year, $21 million contract that included $7 million guaranteed and a signing bonus of $5 million. It was the largest contract for a fullback in NFL history. At the time, this move was considered insane. Paying a fullback that much money in 2017? Are you crazy?
What a baller. That one on Juice is a baller.
But Kyle understood something that few in the NFL at the time could grasp. The fullback in today's game is a rare advantage, especially one as talented and versatile as Kyle Juszczyk, a fullback who can block, catch, and run the football, even play running back or tight end if you need him to. With someone as creative as Kyle, it allows for formation and personnel grouping versatility, and with defenses becoming smaller and consistently playing more defensive backs than ever, it provides an offense with a size and a physical advantage. The other mismatch nightmare inside the Niners offense is, of course, Kettle. Kittle is one of the most valuable non-quarterbacks in the NFL. In a similar way to Rob Gronkowski, how he was valuable to the Patriots. Every championship team needs a Kittle, a player that every defense must pay attention to on every single down. He is an excellent receiver and brings incredible energy to an offense and a locker room. But as good as he is as a receiver, he is even more valuable as a blocker.
We use juice, and me and him work together in almost every single run. So if he goes inside, he's juices, and I'd go up to 33.
Which is a complete nightmare for defenses, because what personnel do you send out on the field? If you go small, they're gonna run it. If you go big, they're gonna pass it. Pick your poison when you play the Niners.
Kyle, work up?
Yeah, it's incredible. That's one of my favorite things about playing with Coach Shannon.
Speaking of running it, what about the guys that carry the football? After all, you need players to take advantage of all the blocking. With all the 49ers skill players, there is one common theme. What can you do with the ball in your hands? The name of the game with Kyle's backs are fearlessness and, most importantly, speed.
As you see with Matt Breida, and look at the speed on Breida. What a way to start it!
The 49ers running backs are fast. The 49ers pay 2 top 16 running backs in dollars and cents, Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon. Unfortunately, McKinnon hasn't been able to see the field due to injuries, which is why they actually signed Tevin Coleman, to fill the void left by McKinnon, the multifaceted back who can equally run and receive. This is why Shanahan fell in love with Coleman in his Atlanta days and just had to have him when he became a free agent. Coleman is actually technically the slowest of all of the San Fran running backs. He only runs a 4.39 40-yard dash. Matt Breida, an undrafted find in 2017, according to NFL's Next Gen Stats, Matt Breida was not only the fastest player with the ball in his hands this season on an 83-yard touchdown versus the Browns, but the fastest in the past 2 seasons. Raheem Mostert, without a doubt the best story of all the running backs on this team, undrafted in 2015, spent time on 6 different teams before finding a home with the 49ers, and he stuck around because of his speed and his decisiveness. During college, Mostert was a member of the Purdue track team and was ranked by NFL.com as the fastest college player in the NCAA, with only Tyreek Hill posting a faster 100-meter time. He ran under a 10 flat. With these pieces, Kyle has created the most intricate running game in the NFL to support his quarterback, and he did it without Pro Bowl performers at running back or on the offensive line. 2 running backs with 5+ yards per carry, ranking 2nd in rushing yards and 1st in rushing touchdowns this season, scoring more rushing touchdowns than the all-time leading team in rushing yards, the Baltimore Ravens. San Francisco accomplished this without a 1,000-yard rusher. Instead, their top 3 tailbacks gained between 544 yards and 772 yards. Part of the beauty with Kyle's offense is that it's not just the backs who carry the football. Deebo Samuel was one of 4 receivers with over 10 carries. George Kittle led the NFL in tight end carries. Just take a look at the receivers drafted during Shanahan's tenure. They may not all be superstars, but again, what do they have in common? They're all fantastic with the ball in their hands. Deebo Samuel runs like a running back. Dante Pettis set the all-time record for NCAA career punt return touchdowns. Jalen Hurd, former running back. Of course, George Kittle.
Let's go, Kettle. Have some fun, man. Tear it up.
Richie James, who is their punt returner. The best offenses attack every area of the field and find inventive ways to use their athletes to attack defenses and keep them guessing. It's not like San Fran has put much of their capital into the receiver position. Their highest paid wide receiver or tight end is the 38th highest paid receiver in the league, Emmanuel Sanders, who they traded for. And they only traded for him because they knew they were good, they noticed they were good, and they knew they had a real shot to win the Super Bowl this year, so they said, let's make a move. At Texas, Kyle Shanahan was a receiver himself in college, an undersized, not that fast slot receiver.
I promise you I would have got the ball, like if I designed it for myself.
Oh, yeah,
but
right.
that's kind of,
Which is why I feel like he has such an incredible grasp on both route running and passing concepts.
Kind of ahead of your time, really.
I
go ahead.
agree, but no one believes me when I say that. But I totally agree.
He consistently finds creative ways to get his guys open and put them in the best position to succeed.
I know how to get guys the ball who aren't great at getting open on their own if you just do a few tricks for them and stuff. And
You always hear that Kyle is a great play caller, but what does that actually mean?
From the way he worked with Robert Griffin in Washington to the way he adjusted to Matt Ryan, really pulled every ounce. He lets players max out by putting them in optimal positions, and I think that's the mark of a great head coach.
To me, it means he has rhyme and reason with his play calls. What Kyle does extremely well is he will tie all his plays together.
It's when you start tying the plays together, you can start thinking a few plays ahead, and you know this play's going to set up that play, and you avoid third down because first and second down are going so well, and that tempo picks up, your players pick up, you start to kind of dominate somebody.
This is the basis of his offense. Everything looks the same.
Kettle to set up a block. No, I'm not blocking. It's a fake. What I'm going to do is run a bootleg. Jesse Bates, because Kettle handled him one-on-one, overread to run.
Inside of his scheme, he utilizes a lot of pre-snap motion and a lot of play action, both ranking at the top of the NFL.
You're motion a lot.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Huh?
Pre-snap motion allows the quarterback to indicate the coverage.
Kettle will go out in a three-receiver bunch to the left.
That's what all the motions are for. Tell me and CJ what's going on.
I see you go back and forth sometimes.
75% of the time I'm in motion, bro.
Wow. Play action can fool a defense and allows for easier lanes for a quarterback to throw.
You got the Rams.
Oh, play action. You kidding me?
You got a YY look over here. You get so open. These play actions are unbelievable, man.
For an offensive coach, Kyle really hasn't gone out of his way to get himself a lot of big, flashy weapons, and I really respect that. In fact, only 11 of his 27 draft picks have been spent on offense, meaning 16 of his 27 picks were spent on defense. This guy knows how to build a team. You're probably asking, why would an offensive coach like Kyle put all of his top assets into defense? Personally, I believe it's because Kyle likes the pressure and he wants the assets to be spent on the opposite side of the football. He isn't the best damn play caller in the league on defense. In other words, Shanahan puts the pressure on himself to produce offense by putting his top resources on defense. Look at how many first rounders the Niners have on defense. 7. The offense, meanwhile, has 2. 4 of San Francisco's 7 highest paid players are defensive linemen. 5 of the top 10 are defensive linemen. 3 different first round picks were spent on front 7 players. Even the greatest coaches can't control their players getting physically dominated. Outside of the draft, the Niners made 2 major money moves on their front 7. They signed Quan Alexander to replace Reuben Foster, who was going to be their main middle linebacker for this defense. They traded for Dee Ford to help their pass rush. And the Ford trade is particularly interesting. Something very odd was happening statistically to the Niners defense. The worst in the NFL in takeaways. They only had 7 takeaways. They had the worst interception percentage and ranked 30th in forced fumbles. Last season, they allowed the 2nd most passing touchdowns. Last season, they had the 8th lowest sacks. That all adds up, but last season they also ranked highest in hurry percentage. How does this make any sense? They're causing quarterbacks to get rid of the football, but they're not getting there and they're not forcing mistakes. Maybe it's bad luck, or maybe it's just a lack of players who could actually take advantage.
There's positions we have to fix.
Yeah,
and
sure.
we're going to.
Right.
And there's lots of ways to do that. The draft, free agency, or by trading.
Yeah.
So what do? They bring in D Ford. Last season for the Chiefs, Ford collected 13 sacks, and the Chiefs led the NFL in sacks in total. Ford is a masterful player at taking the football away from quarterbacks. He led the NFL in forced fumbles with 7. And oh yeah, of course, they drafted some guy named Nick Bosa at number 2. 2 edge rushers, forming arguably the best edge rush duo in football this season, and they accomplished that this offseason, impacting the rest of their defense. That was their intention. With those 2 in the fold, the Niners defense ranked 1st in pass defense and 1st in yards per attempt. They finished 3rd in sack percentage and 2nd in third down defense. The San Francisco D scheme is really nothing extraordinary, but it takes advantage of incredible athletes. They have made sure that they've brought in those athletes. Shanahan hired Robert Saleh to implement a similar scheme to the Seattle Seahawks. Look at the guys on the 49ers defense, and you can easily see the comparisons across the board to Seahawk defenders of the past. Along with Saleh, Kyle brought in a leader for his defense, a guy familiar with the scheme and a guy familiar with the Seattle Seahawks, who's still playing at a very high level.
You know, since I got in the league, every category that matters to a corner, I'm number 1 in. Completion percentage, interceptions, touchdowns against, yards.
Richard Sherman, another guy who understands culture and can bring a swag to a defense.
I get tired of hearing the excuses for why I'm great. It was man coverage. I covered the man. I picked the ball off. In the playoffs, in big games, I show up.
Things clicked this season for San Francisco, but it didn't happen overnight. Kyle Shanahan has been great for a long time now, and you just started to realize. San Francisco going from 2nd overall pick to number 1 seed in the NFC and a Super Bowl appearance, only losing 3 games, all by 1 score, was going to happen eventually.
We knew when we came here it was going to take some time. Like I said, I expected to win more games last year. I strongly believe we will this year.
Yeah.
But what we've done in these 2 years is really build a foundation of what our team is.
We shouldn't be surprised because Kyle Shanahan is the chosen one, and he is one with the Force.
Running a 5-yard out route, 85 versus their guy. He's going to go inside and break out. He won't let him out. Watch.
Redmond just held him the whole way.
2 flags.